Welcome back to another episode of the Biker PM. I'm your host, Anthony Pavelich. Today we have part 2 of John Hill. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Make sure you check out part 1 to find out more about John. So what was the... you've talked about your history. You've talked about, your
What's
progression
really interesting
and
was
realizing, hey,
I
I can
left
sell. Let's see
the
where I
website
can go
design
for this. But
agency
was there
and worked for a
something
small
that
startup for a couple of
inspired
months
you
that
to do it
ended
on
up
your
not
own,
being a
to
good
be an
fit. The burn
entrepreneur?
rate was too high, and things like this, which is pretty common in startups. And then I decided that I was never going to be in that spot ever again. So I decided that I was going to build a company. And really, originally, the goal was just to start like a small consulting practice, make my 6 figures and not really, do anything more than that. And one day I was at a sales conference. This is about a year ago now. And they had the Zig Ziglar quote up on the screen. And I talk about this a lot. It says, you can have everything you want if you help enough other people get what they want. And I've never really gone down the Ziglar path, too much. I'm a huge fan of personal development and improvement, but just haven't ever, gone down that tree. But I was thinking about
Exactly.
that line, and I was thinking about very specifically about my buddy who brought me into the website agency, and the guy who I'm still very close with who brought me into my first B2B role. And if it wasn't for those two guys taking fairly large shots on an unknown quantity, I wouldn't be here today. So in that moment, I decided that like this is not going to be just about me. I want to grow this company and the other companies that I plan on starting down the line to a point where I can bring people in, give them an opportunity to like work on something interesting, but with the agreement of like you need a side hustle and I want to help you grow it. And the goal is that you eventually come in and tell me you're making too much money on your side hustle to work with me and you got to go do that thing. Like that's really what I want for people, and it gets me really excited, right? And so like even during these like tough times where the days are blending together and everything kind of feels like it's one big long day full of sweatpants and Tiger King, it's that kind of motivation. Man, it's a whirlwind. It's ridiculous, but that I want to be able to take shots on people, right, and kind
I
of
haven't
give them
even
some of the
got
same
into
stuff that
Tiger
I
King,
was able
but
to pick up and learn from the people who took shots on me. So that really shifted it from being like a solopreneur consultant to like let's build this into a bigger thing with people.
I'm with you on the fact that I never really got into Zig Ziglar. I'm big on finding
Mm-hmm.
people, mentors, whether they know they're my mentors or not, like virtual mentors that can motivate me and keep me
Yeah.
going in the direction I want to go. But there are some out there that, even though they have a really good message, the way they present their message can be a turnoff. Um, and that Zig Ziglar, I do like the Zig Ziglar quote, but he always sounded like he should be on a pulpit to me when he spoke, like he was a preacher. That's one of the things that quote that you said I keep in the back of my head as well, because um, my goal is to help
Mm-hmm.
other entrepreneurs with their project management, with their processes, to, like you, I'm a process geek, to make sure that things are in place that are going to
Exactly.
make everything run smoother for them. And hopefully by helping them, then it helps myself. It helps me. But my goal is to, I've seen too many
You
small
know,
businesses,
the
entrepreneurs
really
that don't
interesting thing
have
about that is
processes,
that
and I've seen how it can actually
for a lot of
affect
people,
their
the idea
business.
of
So
creating
my
processes
goal is to try
and
to
making it
help
repeatable is
mitigate that.
such, I'll do that later.
So
Right. I don't have time for that right now. I'll figure that out later. And the thing is a coach said to me once is that if you are not um, promotable,
yeah,
you are not replaceable. Right. And I think about that as the entrepreneur, right? Because, I'm not sure if you read The E-Myth, but that book had a profound impact on me. And
yeah,
it was all about this idea that most entrepreneurs create jobs around themselves. They don't actually create companies. So they get into it looking for freedom and more money and all these things, but they're just so bogged down because they have built a bottleneck in their business that they're the only person who can do it. And that makes it not scalable, right? At least not cheaply, right? Because if you need someone to come in and be a mind reader or have the industry knowledge to like pick up and run with the ball immediately, you're going to pay a premium. Versus if you take the time to document your processes and automate as much as you can, and everything is documented cleanly and clearly, it's easier to find someone who doesn't have all the industry knowledge and maybe require quite the premium that, the 13-year veteran would take to bring them onto your team. You can run a little bit leaner and have lower costs, which is a big name of the game of being successful, right? Managing your margin and making sure that you're profitable.
I had this exact conversation, and I wish I could remember with who, but it's a recent conversation about, taking the time as you're doing things and document it so that it's easier to pass off when you need to. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you're never going to be able to pass it off because you haven't documented anything, or it's going to take a lot more time to train somebody. It's easier if you have a good
Yeah,
documentation,
the
step-by-step
closer,
documentation of what you do.
and you know this because
Create
you
it
you
as
ride
you're
bikes, and
doing it, and then it's always there,
I'm
and
a
then you
martial
can
arts
just
guy, right?
easily
And so
pass it on and
the more
train
you do
somebody.
something to that level to
Um,
where you have unconscious mastery, you can do it without having to think about it, the harder it is to teach it to someone else, right? And if you don't believe that to be true, go teach your kids how to tie your shoestrings, because oh my god, right? I,
yes,
I have I have an I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I've never come
yeah,
so close to like throwing a shoe out the window, because how do you not know how to do this? It's just a thing that you do, and um, eventually I had to go get a board and drill some holes in it and run a shoelace through it. And we just started with the smallest component, right? Here's the first knot, tie it, do that 500 times, or
ah,
not really 500, but, and really kind of working with her slowly. But we have these processes, and a process is just like a regimented, regular way of doing something.
yeah,
Some people hear the word process and they get nervous about it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that big of a deal. But, you know, if you have an old truck and the radiator leaks, you don't just get out there and start the truck. You pop the hood and you check to make sure that you've got fluid in the radiator. That's your process for starting the vehicle, right? And most people want to wait too long. Well, let me make this perfect and then I'll document it, and that's just not true, because the more you can do it, the more it becomes this jumble of things that you're doing, and that makes it really hard to explain to someone else. And even if you try to sit down 6 months later and document all the parts of that thing, there's going to be parts of it that only live in your head. And when it only lives in your head, that's not serving anybody, right? I'm currently working with my girlfriend who works on my team. She's my editor. We're going through my exact process for generating leads and
yeah,
conversations off of LinkedIn, even like during right now. It's like a 12-page document. And I feel like I'm pretty good at documenting my processes because that's kind of the business I'm in. But we're going through this, and there's 7 or 8 things on that thing that I didn't really do a good job of outlining because I'm making some assumptions about the person reading it. And having someone right there beside me who doesn't have that same level of knowledge she can hold me accountable to, is everybody going to know what you mean by this? No. Okay, cool, so let's explain it, and those kinds of things. um, but yeah, I agree. It's a lot of time to build out the processes, right? And it feels like not the
yeah.
best use of your time right now when you're in that full shiny thing entrepreneurial scramble, but it is going to serve you so well in the long run if you just start from scratch and document things as you do them. So that way, the minute you can scale, you can, right? Hmm. Exactly. Is there a process of that? Yes. Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, you can hand it off with minimal trouble and ease of training. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. One
Yeah.
of the questions that I always ask, and you've already answered this, is there
What's really interesting is when I
a
started this
resource that has
company,
inspired
Adaptive
you? And you brought
Growth,
up that your
I
book.
I kind of had
Is
3
it
things that I
the
really
E-Myth?
wanted to do for people. I want to
What
do
was it
the
about that book
CRM
that?
setups and allow people to run data-driven sales processes and help people scale sales. But then I also uh, locally have a pretty good reputation of doing a lot of networking, making a lot of introductions, and I decided that I would kind of work with people. If you're too busy to network, I'll network for you. Any leads that come up that are part of your kind of wheelhouse, I will send only those to you. And it was awesome because a lot of people had known me to be a big networker and was having lots of meetings, and so they were hopping onto this offer. And then I read that book, and I realized that not one of my clients was going to be okay with me putting someone else to go do their networking. So if I'm the only person who can do it, it is therefore not scalable. And that would mean that it would be hard for me to, travel or spend time with my family or take a week off to go do something when I had a commitment of a certain number of total conversations that I was going to have on an ongoing monthly basis as part of the KPI for this offer. The other thing that I wanted to offer was kind of fractional sales management, right? If you're not good at managing your sales team, or if you're not great with, diving into those metrics and those numbers and you want someone to do it, I can do it for you. But the same problem was also there. It's gonna be really hard for me to hand that off to someone else and for that new person to have the same level of trust and authority that I was having because I already knew the clients. So both of those things had to go after reading that book because I couldn't scale them. It would have to be me, and that wasn't going to be sustainable for the long term. And that forced me to really double down on the sales process, right? And now what happens is that once we build out the process and we kind of have some knowledge about what's really happening sales wise, most people fall into one of two camps, right? They either need more leads to hit their goals, right, with the knowledge that not every deal is going to close, and we do some lead gen via LinkedIn and cold email for those people. And then some people just want to increase their percentages of the conversations, right? Which is more sales coaching and sales training. And so I have coaches and people that I can send that kind of work to. So I kind of had this problem mentally about being the guy who shows up and says, hey, your sales could be better. Let's put it in this data-driven system, and then not be able to answer the specific concerns that come with being in a data-driven thing, right? Because you either need to work to improve your opportunities, or you need to increase the number of opportunities. I wanted to be able to kind of solve that problem as well. One piece of advice, if you're going to be
If you had one piece of advice for anybody that was looking to go out on their own and be an entrepreneur, what would that be? You've given a lot of, I mean, you've had a lot of great information so far, a lot of great advice on the books and on everything. But if there was one piece of advice you had to give to
one of the
somebody
guys
not
on the
related to like
podcast with me
marketing
on Sales
necessarily
Throwdown is
or
actually my
sales,
old
but just one
boss.
piece of advice that
And
somebody
one
said
of the things
came to
that
you and
he
said,
is
you know
really
what, I'm
great
looking
at
on starting my
is
own
thinking
business.
with the end in mind. And he
What
talks
would you
about
say
this
to
all the
them?
time. And I think that that's really important when you're an entrepreneur, because it's so easy to get caught up in some of the there's so much hype around startups and entrepreneurship and everything else like this currently. And there's the whole Gary V hustle 24/7 kind of thing, which I don't agree with. I think that that can be toxic and very, very bad for, you know, your ability to do this long term. But think about
Mhm.
where you want to be and what does that successful business look like, because that means different things to different people. And I have a friend who has an email marketing company, and he's really, really good at what he does, and he loves to write email and he loves to write copy. We were talking about his goals, and he told me that his goal was to be at 100K in revenue each month, and his average offer is about $3,000. So I said, you know, you're going to have 33 clients, right, whenever you hit this 100K mark, you know, that you're saying is the goal. He said, yeah. I said, do you like writing copy? And he goes, man, I love it. That's the whole reason why I started the business. I said, well, for you to manage that kind of client load, you're not getting to do any of that writing anymore. You are managing the people that are doing that writing. And if that's what you want, then go out and get it. But if you need to have some outlet towards the work itself, because like that's what spurred you to
Yeah.
like start your business in the first place, maybe you don't need to be as big. Maybe you need to adjust. You know, there's a lot of people out there who start businesses and get it above a certain point, and then they don't continue on as the CEO anymore, right? Because they understand that they just want to do the work, right? These things don't get talked about because it's not as sexy as, you know, the unicorn stories, but it's all about knowing where you fit in, doing the things that you love to do, and either having accountability around the things that you don't want to do, or getting that off your plate as soon as you realistically can,
Yeah.
right? So kind of brings us back full circle. If you're, you know, a lead gen person, a coach, a consultant, or whatever else like this, and you don't like selling, there are so many people who would literally line up to sell your offer. They need some coaching, they need some process, they need some technology, so that way everybody feels okay. But it's never been a better time to try to hand that off to somebody right now, as long as you do it the right way. So if you don't get value and personal excitement out of having sales conversations, I get that. That's most of my clients, honestly. But it still has to be handled, because sales is the lifeblood, right? If you don't have new deals coming in, and it's just not going to be sustainable. You can't hit any of your goals. So that's kind of my thing. Think with the end in mind, and if it's something you don't get value out of, try to get out from under it as soon as you can, but do it with process. Don't just delegate by abdication, because that never works. Absolutely.
That's great advice, because you do. A lot of people just jump in and don't even think of where they want to go. What do I want to do? What do I enjoy doing? Let's do it. And not
I'm
really
not
think
exactly
of what
sure
the end goal is.
when
Before
this
because
episode
we're
is
getting
going to come
close
out,
to our
but
time for today.
a couple
Is there
weeks.
anything else you
So
want to share? Is
if
there
we're
anything
still
else that you'd want to
under
tell our listeners?
everything that we're currently under with the coronavirus and the COVID-19 and working from home and everything else like this, if we're still in the middle of
Couple
that,
weeks. Yeah.
there's going to be another side to this. Nobody knows exactly what that looks like yet, but by this point, you've had the time to have the shock of the huge change and everything else, and this is the time that you double down on your effort, and you capture the momentum and everything else, because I think on the far side of this, we're going to see some brand new companies and brand new influencers and people who have taken action during this time and are pivoted themselves to be really successful on the back end of it. And there's ample opportunity to be one of those people. So don't just sit around and wait for it to like figure itself out. Take action, take accountability, and move things forward. Awesome. Thank you. Sure. Absolutely. So the
How
podcast
do
is
people
Sales
get a hold of you?
Throwdown.
How can people
We
find
try
out
to
more
release an
about you and
episode
about your
every week
business
with
and your podcast? So just
Corona and everything.
give us all
That's
those,
a
and
little difficult right now, so we're trying to figure that
then
out.
we'll
We've
let you
got
go.
30 something episodes out, so we're kind of past the entry phase. We also record them and put them on YouTube. So if you like to watch your podcast, because that's a thing apparently, and you want to watch us drink and kind of needle each other on camera, that's awesome. We are awesome. Okay, yeah.
I've done an initial one. I'm going to do occasional ones with my
Absolutely.
podcast,
Yeah.
but
So
Facebook
there's
Live.
4 of us on there. We occupy the
Just
4 seats
there
of
are
disc.
certain ones that
Someone
I'm
who's a D,
thinking, oh,
someone who's an I,
this
someone
is
who's
going
an
to be
S,
a
and
fun
someone who's
one.
a
Let's
C.
just do it live, and
And
then I
you
will
hear
repurpose it as a
how that
podcast
comes
later.
across, right? When you listen to us speak, you start to pick it out. Oh yeah, that's something that a C would say or a D would say, and that's going to help you in your conversations. Whether you're in sales or whether you're in management or really in any walk of life, if you have communication with other people, there's room to improve. So that's called Sales Throwdown. That's on all the major platforms. It's also on Spotify. It's on YouTube. You can follow that on social media at Sales Throwdown. We do giveaways and things like that for the podcast. My company is called Adapted Growth. It's at Adapted Growth on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then my personal brand, where I talk about entrepreneurship and efficiency and these things that I wish that I had known 3 and 4 and 5 years ago. That's at johnsmallmountain.com, and that's all over social media as well, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at John Small Mountain. And yeah, that's it. Anytime I can talk about process with anybody is a good day. So
Great.
awesome.
I'll
Thanks for
make
having
sure
me on.
that the links to this is all in the show notes. And I appreciate you being here with me today. It's been a great conversation. It is. It really is. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Biker PM. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. And remember, if you're an entrepreneur that wants to be with like-minded individuals and improving their project management skills, join the Biker PM Facebook group. Until next time.